Hola amigos, ¿cómo estás? In this episode I ride a bit over 200 kilometers from Arequipa in the Andes down to the coast to the Peru-Chile border at Tacna, Arica, through the dry Region Chala, the desert of southern Peru. Along the way we see signs, shrines, conical mountains, homesteaders, a few other things. And when I do finally arrive in sunny days hostel in Arica, I find out just how fortunate I was to have left that day and not a day later.
Numerous people have been blown up over the years trying to come across.
I woke up before dawn and shot this time lapse, but it was kind of ruined by all the fog rolling in. For a minute I thought about just staying in the hotel room and having a lazy Sunday and doing nothing, but then the sun came out and I decided to make a run for the border. So I'm leaving the Hotel Mirador in Moquegua after only one night because I'm eager to get down to Patagonia before it gets too cold. At Wacky weathered an overnight rainstorm, but she started okay. Part of the ease of starting it could be because it's warmer here and there's more atmospheric pressure at this lower altitude. I'm going to speed up the footage so you can see what this little town looks like. But I did stop here and double check the GPS just so I didn't get lost on my way out of town. Now that's Vista Alegre, or heartwarming view, and doesn't it look different to how it did yesterday? It looks a lot more appealing than it did yesterday. Yesterday I would have given it the name Vista Pessimo because it was so dark and gloomy because of all the storm clouds. Seeing all that green, it's easy to forget we're in the middle of a desert. Today is a Sunday, so there's not much traffic. I reckon a nice quiet Sunday would be the perfect day to cross the international border. No stress. Here we're crossing the reason there is some green around here, the Rio Osmore. Now from this camera angle you can't really see, but I could see with my eyes that the river was very swollen due to all the recent rain. Today it doesn't have quite the same fruity aroma as yesterday. Maybe the rain's washed away the smell or whatever, or maybe the wind's coming from a different direction, but it's not quite as strong. It's still there, but not quite as strong. That sign says, "The Peruvian copper capital thanks you for your visit." I knew there was copper around here somewhere. Now this sign says, "Love yes, syphilis no. Sometimes we don't only transmit love to our children." Well, that's getting direct to the point, isn't it? Now this sign says, "Ruta del Pisco, Bodega Ponce." And as any Aussie would tell you, that sounds very, very close to being obscene in Australian slang. I won't say any more than that. Now on the right there, that's a cuyeria, a restaurant that specialises in cuis, or guinea pig hamsters. Now you can see just how abruptly the green ends and the desert begins as we leave the irrigated river valley. Well, that's it. Not a blade of grass, too dry even for a cactus to survive. Nothing. Stark but beautiful. That sign says, "Don't throw trash, show your education." Trying to shame people, I guess. Speaking of cactus, on the right side there's a roadside shrine that has cactus. Someone must be watering it for it to survive. I'd say it marks a fatal accident on this blind curve here. Now something really unusual is coming up. See that conical hill on the left? Now as we get closer you'll see it has a high voltage tower perched right on the top of it. It looks almost perfectly conical. By the way, I'm interested in these kind of things because I'm a former electrician. It looks almost surreal, it's so conical. The environment here is just absolutely desolate, with only the occasional shrine like this one to break the bleak monotony. This one's dedicated to the Virgin del Carmen, who's very honoured in Chile, Peru, Bolivia even. It's even got like a prayer or a message there in Spanish, dedicated to travellers. Some of these shrines are unique and appealing, others look lonely and forgotten, but each one represents a tragic loss to some family somewhere, and it's just sad to see so many. Now that says there's a turn off to the coastal town of Ilo. We're very close to the coast here, but it won't come into view until we get down to Arica. Some more shrines to the left, and it looks like a multiple tragedy there. Look at all the crosses. Maybe a whole family perished. You wonder how people can have accidents on these straight stretches, but I guess they fall asleep at the wheel, or they have a blowout, or they're drunk, or I don't know. How could you have an accident on this straight stretch like this? Hello, something's happening here. I can only guess it's a subdivision allotment, because we are getting pretty close to Tacna. Some greenery there, so there must be some water around here. And there's a dead animal, so there must be water around here somewhere soon. Here's some signs we're getting close to civilization. I won't buy petrol here, I'll buy it in town because I can ask directions when I'm in the middle of the town there. And that sign says we're 1 kilometre from Tacna and the frontier is only 40 kilometres. Barring an accident or a breakdown, I'm certain I'll be able to cross the border and get into Arica before nightfall. Here we are coming into the town of Tacna, the last Peruvian town before the Chile border. Bienvenidos a Tacna. Welcome to Tacna. Now, which way to go? Whoa, what's that, a huge statue of a lion? I figure if I just stay on the main road, the Panamericana, it should take me directly to the border. I hate these roundabouts. This exit looks like the main one. I'll just take this one and hope it leads somewhere. Ah, there's a gas station. Lots of little blue and white three-wheelers around here. It must sell their type of fuel. Grifo Municipal Miguel Grau. That's named after a Peruvian naval hero. I might talk about him in a later episode. Right, less than 40 kilometres to go. Oh man, there's a veritable armada of blue and white tuk-tuks here. Where did they all come from, I'd like to know. Actually, I do know where they come from. They're probably Bajaj tuk-tuks and they come from India. I think I just better pull over here and double check the GPS. It's such a time saver in the long run. This town wasn't always Peruvian. At different times in the past it was occupied by Bolivia and Chile. Another shrine. I would like to stop and investigate them and maybe put their GPS coordinates in Find a Grave database, which I've been contributing to for many years, but I just don't have enough time. They're just so numerous, these monuments and shrines. Ah, only 10 kilometres to go. This must be it. That says, Peru thanks you for your visit. You'd think that sign should be on the other side of the control point. Of course, I've crossed here a couple of times in the past, but this is the first time I've crossed any border with a vehicle of my own. Let's see what the immigration bureaucrats throw at me in terms of paperwork and stuff. Now, I want to park it as close to the office as possible, because when I go in, there's less chance of someone ratting through my bags if it's close. Done, got the stamp. It was a bit of a breeze, and the bike had no paperwork at all. He just entered it into the computer and said I could stay out for 3 months, and if it's longer than that I can apply for an extension, but if I don't get the extension I'll be fined when I came back. That's what he said to me. Now that didn't end up being true, but that's what I was told. I was a bit worried about the paperwork for the bike because Jeff from Norton's in Cusco told me that sometimes they don't let foreigners drive Peruvian plated vehicles out, even if they own it, because the ownership papers are very easy to fake. But I guess they let me through because I bought that bike brand new only a few months ago. It's all in my name. I had the insurance up to date and everything. Now let's see if they let me into Chile. I take back my earlier words. They do have a sign on this side of the checkpoint as well. Well, there was no problem, but they were very, very thorough with their search. Sniffer dogs, all bags through an x-ray machine. They even made me open up that white plastic box on the handlebar luggage rack. Now, the man riding this bike, I passed him on the way. I heard him talking. He's elderly North American, Canadian or American, but I didn't get to talk to him because we're in different parts of the queue and I didn't want to lose my place in the queue. But look at that, chalk and cheese. Pretty soon I was barreling down these dead straight streets of Arica and straight into Sunny Days. Sunny Days Hostel, where surfing meets concrete Catholicism. Here's the main dining room. That's Ross Morehouse, who actually built the place by connecting two existing houses and made it into one big house. He's from New Zealand and proud of it. He runs a successful hostel because it's little touches like this welcoming drink and piece of cake. But later on that night, there was a serious problem, and you could see it written all over the faces of the backpackers in the computer room. 17 prisoners had escaped last night from Chayapalca prison in Puno on the shores of Lake Titicaca. It's freezing cold up there, 1.2 kilometres higher than Cusco, maximum security prison. And among the 17 were 3 murderers, people wanted for sexual assault, extortion, violent assault, and to make it worse, they got away with guns and they were in uniforms. Maybe they were impersonating police or something. So in response, Peru closed all its borders with Bolivia and Chile until they were rounded up. But they hadn't been rounded up yet. But then things got even worse than that. Overnight rain had flooded the rivers and they had dislodged landmines laid by Pinochet at a time when they thought Peru and Chile might go to war. So the road was cut as well as the border being shut because there were hundreds, they say over 200, anti-personnel and anti-tank mines were strewn across the road. And to make it worse, they floated and they were getting washed into the ocean and turning up on the beaches, which was a tourist attraction of Arica. I could hear what I thought was thunder, but it was actually explosions.
The river came through and created the hole. You can see where it's, and there was concern about mines in there, and that's the explosions you've been hearing. Every now and then, boom.
But according to Ross, who's lived here for years, that has been a problem in the past. People trying to skip around the border control post, they end up stepping on a landmine or driving over a landmine and it kills people every year.
Numerous people have been blown up over the years trying to come across illegal workers or drug smugglers coming across the border. They'll usually say, they all say that they were coming to work illegally. They didn't lose arms or legs, or some of them have lost their lives altogether. But the 2004 agreement to remove anti-personnel mines from around the world was signed by Chile.
Who put them there, Pinochet? Or?
The mines were sown during the 1970s when Pinochet was in power, and he was concerned that Peru might, while he was occupied with internal strife, that the Peruvians might decide that they would come across the border and take back the land that they had lost during the War of the Pacific in the late 1800s. So Chile has started a program to pick up all those mines, and out of the 137,000 that were sown, they have picked up roughly 16%, and there's an annual program ongoing, but it's, as you can imagine, it's incredibly slow work. The broadly defined area is quite clearly marked with fence lines and signs saying minefield. But the problem is that every now and then you get these incredibly heavy rains, as happened 28 years ago, and the rains come down, you get not just a flow of floodwaters, it becomes a mudslide, and the mudslide picks up everything that's in its path, including the mines, and then spreads them out wherever it happens to stop. And so many of these mines no longer are within the minefields, they're actually spread down riverbeds.
They found one on the beach somewhere the other day?
Yes, there's some on the beach the other day. After the heavy rains, the heaviest rains for 43 years in 2001, they washed out 4 river bridges out here. And one of the guys was working a front-end loader and went down into the riverbed, and he was about to pull up a scoopful, and he thought, I recognised that because he'd spent time in the military, so he stopped his machine and went down, and there was a mine that had been washed down and sitting in the riverbed in front, about where he was just about due to put his scoop in.
Now, the 2012 Dakar Rally had just been held and had come down the Panamericano through Tacna and Arica. But now people were worried about the 2013 event. It ended up going ahead, but the organisers probably thought this is not worth the risk if it ever rains again. And that was the last Dakar Rally to go through this minefield, the 2013 Dakar Rally.
When you think about it, the Dakar Rally, the competitors are often spread out over a wide area and they often get lost and wander off, and all the spectators' cars that follow them and all the fans and all that taking shortcuts. It's a miracle they didn't go over some area that had been subjected to a previous flood, and there could have been landmines there just waiting to blow up. And landmines aren't only laid on that border there, Tacna-Arica. They're lined up on the border with Bolivia, down south in Patagonia with Argentina, and even towns further south, down like Antofagasta, they have lots of landmines. And just 2 months after I crossed the border, there was a fatal accident when a taxi went over an anti-tank mine and killed the guy. He was going a back way, he didn't go the authorised way, and he paid the price. Then I started thinking, well, maybe I'm pretty lucky too, because remember in a previous episode, we rode out of Puno on the 17th of February, and the breakout happened on the 19th of February. And we almost went back because of the thick fog. So lucky we didn't run into those guys. And they were armed with grenades that they stole from the prison police. It eventually came out that they'd bribed their way out. And 3,000 police were looking for them. They eventually caught all but one of them. And then the border closed just hours after I passed through and stayed closed for several days. But the real thing that I think was lucky was that I didn't come across any of those 200 anti-personnel and anti-tank mines that, you know, you could just say, oh, this is a bit of a muddy patch, I'll just go around the side of it there. Oh, what's that? It's a rock? And no, it's not a rock. And how might that have ended? I know how that might have ended. Like this. Coming up in the next episode, and don't forget to subscribe or you might miss it.
It was getting to the point where I thought I'd have to turn around and go back because I wouldn't have enough gasoline when I saw it. Pueblo Malcu, the family that lives in an abandoned train carriage. And what a lovely family they were.
So some of these animals would suddenly go into epileptic fit. And again, out comes the Coca-Cola, and you dose them up with the Coca-Cola to get them back on their feet again. And he said to Ross, don't let your children out of your eyes. Don't ever let them out of your sight around here, because they will disappear and you will never see them again.